Have you noticed your grown children becoming increasingly distant or perhaps showing less respect than before? You gave them years of love and nurturing, and now you find yourself wondering where things went wrong. It's painful, isn't it? But
Here's something important to remember. Responding with anger or sinking into depression won't resolve anything. Instead, there are thoughtful approaches you can adopt to restore harmony, self-respect, and rebuild mutual regard without creating family conflicts. In this guide, I'm sharing 8 effective strategies you can implement immediately. These are proven mindful techniques that many parents in their later years have successfully used to repair fractured family bonds, and they can help you do the same. Let's begin. When we feel disregarded by the very people we've raised, the hurt runs deep. The natural impulse might be to lash out. How could you treat me this way after everything I've sacrificed for you? But before allowing emotions to control your actions, take time to pause and reflect, because reacting from a place of hurt often drives your children further away, worsening the situation. Consider Dr. Yamada, a former university professor in his late 70s. His children rarely made time to see him, and when they did visit, conversation was minimal. After another voicemail went unanswered, he felt his patience evaporating. He wanted to phone his daughter and demand, "Do you even think about me anymore?" Instead, he restrained himself. He chose to take a peaceful stroll in the botanical garden near his residence. As he walked, recollections of his life surfaced. His decades as a devoted educator, the sacrifices made for his family, and the joyful moments shared with his children during their younger years. He realized that his self-worth wasn't dependent on whether his children called him. His value came from the life he had constructed and the compassion he had shown to countless students and colleagues throughout his career. That period of quiet contemplation helped him understand that his dignity wasn't something his children could diminish, regardless of how remote they became. This anecdote teaches us something crucial. Emotional responses rarely yield positive outcomes. When you react impulsively, you don't earn respect, you undermine it. Instead, pause, breathe deeply, reflect, and remind yourself of your inherent value. This approach allows you to address the situation with greater clarity and a stronger sense of self-worth, which often leads to more constructive communication and, eventually, relationship restoration. Remember, dignity comes from within, not from others' approval. Calm reflection will always provide more insight than anger ever could. One of the most empowering steps you can take when feeling neglected by your children is to redirect attention back to yourself. Rather than waiting for their acknowledgement or validation, begin reconstructing your own life by discovering new meaning. When you live with fulfillment, your energy transforms, and that transformation doesn't go unobserved. A parent who radiates contentment, confidence, and self-sufficiency becomes much harder to overlook. Take the story of Ms. Sophia, a widow in her early 70s. After her spouse passed away, her children's visits became increasingly sparse. Phone conversations grew shorter until eventually they nearly ceased altogether. Initially, she felt devastated, spending days beside the telephone, hoping for it to ring. But one spring morning, she decided enough was enough. She retrieved a packet of flower seeds from her pantry and ventured into her neglected garden. At first, it was merely a simple activity, planting flower beds and tending to vegetable patches. But soon, gardening evolved into her passion. She joined a neighborhood horticultural society, formed new friendships, and began sharing her harvest with nearby residents. Sophia's entire demeanor changed. She became more cheerful, active, and connected to her neighborhood. Then, unexpectedly, her son called. "Mom, I've been thinking about you lately. You sound so vibrant these days. What's your secret?" That spontaneous call led to more frequent visits and deeper conversations. Sophia's newfound sense of purpose rekindled her children's admiration. They saw her not as someone desperately waiting for their attention, but as someone engaged in a rich, meaningful existence. The essential lesson here is straightforward. A fulfilled parent is harder to disregard. When your life has purpose, people naturally gravitate toward you, including your children. So instead of waiting for them to re-enter your life, invest in yourself. Pursue interests, join community organizations, or volunteer locally. The happiness you discover within will not only bring you peace, but might also draw your children back to you. When your children appear distant or disrespectful, it's tempting to confront them with frustration. You might want to say, "Why don't you ever reach out? Don't you care about me anymore?" But harsh words typically cause defensiveness and create more distance. The key lies in communicating your feelings in a way that encourages connection rather than confrontation. A gentle, sincere approach works better than accusations or guilt-inducing statements. Consider Mr. Thompson, a retired craftsman who hadn't heard from his daughter Emily in several months. Each evening, Mr. Thompson would sit near his front window, hoping to see Emily's car pull into his driveway. The silence wounded him deeply, and he often contemplated calling Emily to demand answers. But instead of allowing his frustration to dictate his actions, he chose an alternative path. He sat at his dining table and composed a heartfelt letter. In it, he expressed his feelings without blame. "Emily, I think about you frequently. I miss our conversations and hearing about your daily experiences. I just want you to know I'm always here for you and I'm proud of you no matter what." Several days later, his phone rang. It was Emily. The letter had touched her profoundly. She admitted that work and family responsibilities had consumed her time, but she hadn't realized how much her father missed their connection. That single letter initiated regular phone calls and weekend visits that had been absent for years. The critical lesson is to communicate wisely. Rather than blaming your children for their absence, express your emotions gently. Use phrases like, "I miss our time together," or "I've been thinking about you," instead of, "You never call me." Words possess the power to heal or hurt, and when you select your words carefully, you open the door to understanding and reconnection. Respect operates as a reciprocal relationship. As much as you desire respect from your children, you also need to respect yourself by establishing healthy boundaries. When you permit disrespect to continue unchecked, it communicates that you're willing to tolerate hurtful behavior. But when you stand firm for your own well-being, you not only protect your peace of mind but also teach others how to treat you. Consider Ms. Patricia, a retired healthcare worker in her mid-70s. Her son Michael had grown increasingly demanding. Over time, he rarely visited unless he needed something: financial assistance, help with his children, or someone to absorb his frustrations. Patricia always dropped everything to assist, hoping it would make him appreciate her more. But Michael's demands became unreasonable. He would arrive unannounced, expecting her to provide childcare for hours without asking, and never once expressed gratitude. After yet another last-minute request, Patricia decided enough was enough. Instead of agreeing as usual, she gently but firmly said, "Michael, I love you dearly, but I'm not available today. I've made plans for myself." Initially, Michael was surprised, even irritated. But Patricia remained consistent. She stopped accommodating unreasonable demands and focused on her own well-being. She joined a local literature group, began attending wellness classes, and reconnected with longtime friends. Gradually, Michael noticed the change. He observed that his mother was no longer waiting anxiously for his calls or bending over backward to meet his every request. He started treating her with greater respect, recognizing that his behavior had been self-centered. By establishing boundaries, Patricia reclaimed her dignity, and her relationship with her son improved significantly. The fundamental lesson is simple: respect must be mutual. You deserve to be treated with kindness and consideration, but that begins with how you treat yourself. Setting boundaries doesn't mean pushing your children away. It means valuing your own time, energy, and emotional health. When you respect yourself, others are more likely to follow your example. It's easy to expect respect from others, but the truth is that respect must be earned, and often it's earned through our own actions. If you want your children to treat you respectfully, begin by showing them what that looks like. How you speak, act, and treat others, including your children, can profoundly influence their behavior. When you lead by example, you silently teach those around you how to act in return. Take the story of Mr. Garcia, a retired industrial worker and grandfather of several grandchildren. As he aged, he noticed his adult children visited less frequently. When they did visit, they often seemed preoccupied, constantly checking their phones and quick to depart. This hurt him deeply, but instead of responding with resentment or bitterness, Mr. Garcia chose an alternative approach. He continued to treat his children with kindness and respect, even when they didn't reciprocate. When they came to visit, he would welcome them warmly. "I'm so happy to see you," he'd say with a genuine smile. He never mentioned their extended absences or criticized their lack of attentiveness. Instead, he inquired about their lives, listened attentively, and offered thoughtful counsel when they sought it. Even when his children forgot his birthday one year, he didn't allow it to harden his heart. He simply sent them a message. "I hope you're all doing well. I miss you." Gradually, things began to shift. His children noticed his unwavering kindness and patience. They started visiting more frequently, calling regularly, and even bringing their children to spend time with him. Mr. Garcia's quiet dignity and consistent respect became a powerful example for his family. The key insight here is that respect is contagious. When you demonstrate respect to others, including your children, it plants a seed. It might require time, but eventually, they'll begin to mirror that behavior. Instead of demanding respect, embody it in your actions. Treat your children the way you wish to be treated, and in time, they'll recognize the value in treating you with equal respect and kindness. As you grow older, one of the most effective ways to preserve respect from your children is to maintain financial independence. It's natural to assume that your children will support you as you age, but relying completely on them for financial assistance can create tension and even resentment. Independence, on the other hand, commands respect. When your children see that you're capable of managing your own affairs, they're more likely to view you as someone strong and self-sufficient, someone they admire rather than someone they must support. Consider the story of Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, a retired couple in their early 70s. After retiring, they decided to downsize their home and simplify their lifestyle to ensure they could comfortably live on their retirement savings. They managed their finances carefully, budgeting for their expenses and avoiding unnecessary debt. Despite living on a fixed income, they maintained their independence without needing to ask their children for financial assistance. At first, their children didn't fully appreciate their parents' careful planning. But over time, they noticed something remarkable. Their parents never requested financial help, never complained about money constraints, and always seemed to have control over their situation. Before long, their children began seeking advice from them about budgeting and retirement planning. The respect developed naturally, not from demands or expectations, but from the example Mr. and Mrs. Wilson set by taking responsibility for their own lives. The essential lesson here is clear. Financial independence conveys a powerful message. It demonstrates that you value your own dignity and that you won't become a burden on your family. This doesn't mean refusing help if you genuinely need it, but it does mean making an effort to manage your affairs as much as possible. When your children see that you've taken charge of your own life, they'll respect you for it, and they'll be more willing to offer their love and support without feeling pressured or obligated. When your children hurt you through neglect or disrespect, forgiveness can be one of the most challenging yet powerful gifts you can offer. Carrying resentment only weighs you down. Forgiveness helps you heal and move forward with inner peace. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting your own worth. You can forgive your children for their actions without allowing that disrespect to define your value. Let me share the story of Mrs. Diana, a retired educator and mother of two. Her son Robert had grown distant over the years, rarely calling or visiting. Diana felt hurt and abandoned, wondering if she had done something wrong. For a long time, she carried that pain, feeling as though she had become insignificant. One day, Diana decided it was time to release the anger. She wrote Robert a letter saying, "I forgive you for the distance between us, and I'll always love you." But she also made a quiet decision to reclaim her dignity. Instead of waiting anxiously by the phone, she returned to writing poetry, something she hadn't done in years. She joined a local writers group, shared her work at community events, and found joy in pursuing her creative passions once more. Months later, Robert visited unexpectedly. He was surprised to see his mother so content and fulfilled. "Mom, you've been writing again. Why didn't you tell me?" Robert asked, visibly moved by his mother's literary work. Diana simply smiled and said, "I've been focusing on what brings me fulfillment." That visit marked a turning point in their relationship. Robert began visiting more often, not from guilt, but from admiration for his mother's quiet strength and independence. The key lesson here is this: forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, but it doesn't mean diminishing your value. You deserve to be treated with respect regardless of circumstances. Forgive past hurts, but never let anyone's neglect or hurtful behavior make you forget your own worth. Pursue your passions, live with dignity, and remember that your value comes from within, not from how others treat you. Loneliness can be one of the most painful consequences of feeling ignored or disrespected by your children. When you have few other people to connect with, you may begin to depend on your children for emotional support, hoping they'll fill the emptiness. But emotional dependence can lead to frustration and resentment, especially if they don't meet your expectations. That's why it's essential to build a new network of social connections. By cultivating relationships with others, friends, neighbors, or members of community groups, you can reduce the pain of neglect and create a rich, fulfilling social life. Take the story of Mr. Albert, a widowed man in his early 80s. For years, he relied on his daughter and son to provide companionship and emotional support. But as they became busier with their own lives, their visits grew shorter and less frequent. He felt isolated, spending most days alone in his home. But one day, after a particularly lonely week, Albert decided to join a local senior citizens center. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he felt a glimmer of hope. To his surprise, he quickly formed new friendships. There was a weekly coffee gathering at the center, a monthly book discussion group, and even a walking club that explored the neighborhood park. Albert soon looked forward to his social activities, and his circle of friends became a vital support system. He shared laughter, stories, and even organized small group outings. Gradually, he stopped depending on his children for his emotional fulfillment. He still loved them and enjoyed their visits, but he no longer experienced the same sense of emptiness when they were unavailable. The crucial lesson here is clear. Loneliness leads to emotional dependence, but an active social life can fill that void. By developing new relationships, you free yourself from expecting everything from your children. You open yourself to new sources of joy, support, and companionship. This not only enhances your emotional well-being, but also makes you less reliant on your children, reducing any feelings of resentment and allowing your relationship with them to flourish in a healthier way. In conclusion, navigating the complexities of relationships with our adult children presents challenges, but it's entirely possible to restore peace, dignity, and mutual respect. By implementing these 8 strategies, from pausing to reflect rather than reacting emotionally, to establishing healthy boundaries and leading by example, you can rebuild stronger, healthier connections with your children while still honoring your own needs and worth. Remember, your value doesn't diminish with age, it only deepens.